not very good at taking notes on my phone, but I hope I did well. This is for Deborah. I thought that during my research, you had formerly taxed milk, and then on a family council survey, you were for taxing fuel. And just after listening to McCullum say that a conservative shouldn't tax fuel, this is way out of my league, so I'm trying to learn. Can you tell me if that's true, and then how do you explain?
Certainly, I appreciate that. You know, I don't like taxes sometimes, but obviously we need taxes. Obviously, infrastructure is very important to our area. If you've ever driven 49, some of you probably did that to get here, you know that infrastructure is needed. And so what I answered in my explanation, it's been over 10 years since a fuel tax has been increased in Arkansas. Obviously, everything else has gone up. And so the reason I put undecided, and what I did put was that I would only support a very modest increase, like 1 cent or less per gallon, and only if it were referred to the voters on that. Because again, you know, we have so many big companies here. We have Walmart, you know, Tyson's, W. Hunt. We're very dependent on infrastructure. So again, that is one thing I would consider. The milk tax, I do believe we need to listen to our constituents. My first term in office, Farm Bureau was lobbying for a 2 cent per gallon tax on per gallon of milk. Didn't hear any negatives about it. They were there. Constituents from here were at the Capitol lobbying for that. They said that the way that explained to me is dairy farmers would tax themselves, and that would help keep dairy farms in the state of Arkansas. And again, I don't like taxes, and my son drinks a lot of milk, but I thought, you know what, if paying 2 cents per gallon, more per gallon of milk, would help keep dairy farms in business in the state of Arkansas, then I'm willing to do that. And it's kind of ironic, because if you bought a gallon of milk lately, milk is lower now than it has been in several years. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to address those concerns. And one thing on infrastructure, if I may, you go. Okay, on the infrastructure part, one thing though, if you see the highway workers, construction workers, you see a lot of times you see a lot of people standing around and just a few working. So I think, and that's another thing, before I would support a tax increase of any kind, I want to make sure we're utilizing the money that is given to them now. I think a few years ago, the state made improvements, I believe it was on Highway 94 on West New Hope, and then they turned that highway back over to Rogers to maintain. And I think we need to do more of that throughout the state. Arkansas ranks 12th in the nation in the number of state highway miles. And I was told that's because at one point, local communities did not have the money to take care of the highways, so that's the reason the state came in and did it. But I think it's time to turn some of those highways back to the local community again, so that if you see your highway needs to be fixed and you want to raise your own taxes and then you know where that money goes, then that's up to the local community. Thank you.
Right. Real quick, we would have time for one more audience question about economic development or taxes. This gentleman here.
Now, pretty much everybody up there was saying that they wanted to lower taxes, or at least one tax, maybe not all of them, but certain targeted taxes. You can't really lower any taxes without lowering the spending unless you're going to add to the $40 billion that we already have in the state debt. So my question to you guys would be, where do you plan on cutting spending? Because lately the governor and both houses have been increasing spending and adding to the debt. So how would you change that? How would you convince your colleagues to change their minds and actually start reducing spending so that you can reduce taxes?
So that was a general question to everyone. You feel free to, you all can answer, no, not everyone has to answer.
Well, I think one of the things that we really need to do, I'm against private auction and Medicaid expansion. And I just really, in researching this, I have taken this on as a project in the last few months because I really wanted to understand it. Because when I get to the legislature, I want to be informed and I want to make the best decisions. But, and thank you for several different organizations, Conduit for one, because you have helped me to get a really good grasp on this. I'm still learning. But I really feel like we need to go in. We have a lot of waste right there in Medicaid. $20 million a month that we're spending for 40,000 people that shouldn't even be on the rolls. We stopped the predetermination process. Didn't realize that until earlier. I had read articles where we were behind on that, which means the federal government supposedly requires that every month or every year, that we go in and make sure that people are on the rolls who should be there. They're still living in the state and they're still making the same income or all the other different criteria. But we are not doing that. So we're not making sure that the people who are on Medicaid are or should be. So I think there's a lot of waste right there in that program alone, and I think that's where we can recover a lot of the money that we were just talking about. Lots of fraud in there. We need to go in there and clean that up.
Anyone else? Grant Hodges?
A couple of things on that. I guess I'd say, for one thing, I think we made some progress on that by cutting the $100 million in income tax last year, which I did vote for and was proud to do. Governor Hutchinson did a hiring freeze on all state agencies and did a 1% cut in all their budgets. I think that's a good start. I can give you an example of one thing I'm working on now that I think just illustrates how much waste and abuse there really is. I asked some of our researchers in Little Rock to look into an issue that I was curious about, which was how much money are we spending as a state every year on orthodontics for our Medicaid patients? $13 million a year. So we're paying $13 million a year for braces, essentially. They claim it's medically necessary, and I know a lot of people would like to make jokes that Arkansans might have bad teeth, which I don't think is true, but I think it's pretty hard to say that we have $13 million worth of orthodontics. I think that money could be used somewhere much more effectively. So I think that's part of it, and I did vote against Medicaid expansion. I think that's something that we need to elect more real conservatives that have got a Little Rock and do. I think we're making progress, but we need to elect the right people who will go to Little Rock and actually make those decisions and work hard to cut spending and cut taxes. I think it can be done, but it's going to take people like you, electing people like the people that are up here on stage.
All right, we're gonna do what?
Can I really fast ask something? Had to do with that question.
Yeah, sure. Do we have a microphone?
I just heard.
Oh, there we go. You're on now.
Okay, I just heard something stated that sounds more like the Democrats. I'm all for decreasing spending, for sure. But the question mentioned that when we have more expenditures, we have to raise taxes. That isn't, I mean, that's the way Arkansas is going, and our governor thinks that's the way, and most of our legislature maybe. But Reagan proved that when you lower the tax rate, you get more taxes coming in. Why do we forget that when they lowered income taxes? Oh, we have to raise the capital gains or something. No, that decreases productivity of the state, and we achieve lower taxes. I just don't get this. And that wasn't really a question, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to our good government section, and we're gonna mix it up. And I know the folks on the right are ready, but we're gonna start over here on the left, which technically, guys, this is stage left, but out there it's house right. So